Welcome to another episode of Talking College Football with JJ Kitchen. Of course, I'm your host, JJ Kitchen. Guys, the Pitt Panthers are 6-0 for the first time since 1982, which is pretty crazy to think about. It's a celebratory moment, but also a rough thought overall to think it's been that long since they've been 6-0. It's truly a special year. And when you look at the way the Pitt Panthers won just yesterday, beating Cal 17-15, the first drive of the game on defense looked horrible. I thought the defense looked soft. It looked slow. It looked out of sorts. Well, after that first drive, it was pretty damn good after that. There's going to be a lot of conversations going on what they need to correct. Obviously, it was just an off day for Eli Holstein. We'll get into a lot of that. And then when we start the show here tonight, obviously I'm a positive guy, but as I told you guys, I'm a very straightforward person. We're going to dive into the first topic tonight after our sponsors. The attendance question. And I think that it really needs to be brought up. And I'm going to give you guys just my original thoughts and really what I think and just the all honest truth. No bullshit media bias from someone that was there, someone that saw it. There has to be discussion about it. As there's a Thursday night coming up, the Thursday game coming up against Syracuse in prime time on television, I think the conversation needs to be held. Before we get into that, guys, obviously, the show is sponsored by Colonial Beer, located at 4986 Library Road in Bethel Park, PA, 15102. Guys, again, run by two great Pitt men. Anytime you're through there, you guys have seen the pictures I've posted. Tremendous people overall. Tremendous people, great customer service, two great Pitt men. Anytime you can support small business, I would suggest doing so. But more importantly, at a place like this, before you go to your tailgates, before you have what type of away game for Pitt, stop by Colonial Beer. They certainly have all the selections that you need. Also, too, you'll see in there the Fake Slide Pilsner, which is helping pay the players at the University of Pittsburgh, and we'll certainly need that after this year with this roster. And it helps support Alliance 412, which is the preferred collective of the University of Pittsburgh. And again, guys, Colonial Beer, tremendous people, tremendous sponsors. Go see them at 4986 Library Road in Bethel Park, PA, 15102. Also, the show is newly sponsored by Thompson Law Group and Brian Thompson, an attorney on your side. Right now, with many people struggling with the economy and rising costs, they're helping many people and businesses with their debts, and they're offering free telephone consultations to assess all options available to those who are struggling, no matter the type of amount of debt that they have. You can reach them at 724-799-8404 and also check them out at thompsonattorney.com. Again, Brian, a dear friend of mine, someone I've known for a long time. When you get involved with attorneys at larger firms, they really look at you as a number. With a place like Brian, for someone I personally use, I talk about a tremendous individual, a Pitt season ticket holder, a guy who has supported Pitt through thick and thin, comes from a great family, has a great family, does a lot of work in the community. He does a great work overall, and he treats each individual person as a special case and not just a number. He wants to see the best results for you. So for me, Thompson Law Group with Brian Thompson is a no-brainer, a guy that will truly take care of you and your needs, and truly proud to have him as a sponsor of Talking College Football with JJ Kitchen. Again, guys, if you have questions, especially about debt or any type of situation, he'll put you in the right hands with the right people, even if he can't do it. But more importantly, give him a call at 724-799-8404 and check him out at thompsonattorney.com. All right, guys, going to the comments section here. If you have not done so, if you're over on X, we've already got 400 people in here, 400 now too, 402 people in here between X and YouTube. If you're over on X, head over to YouTube. Easy thing to do, hit the subscribe button and hit the like button down below. It certainly helps out with the algorithm and helps the channel continue to grow. The show is nothing without you all as you continue to ask great questions, being able to answer them, but more importantly, have a dialogue and a great relationship. I truly, cannot thank each and every one of you enough for what you do for the channel. It means everything in the world to me because it makes the channel great. So again, if you haven't done so, head over to YouTube, hit the subscribe button and hit the like button as well. Guys, the first topic of tonight, really get the negative news really out of the way, or really the negative topic for me personally, is the attendance. Yesterday, the attendance was announced at 49,627 overall, so just barely under 50,000. Personally, I think it was closer because there were some people that weren't in there. Obviously, if you were not at the game, if you saw on the home side in the upper deck, it was pretty much sold out. The bottom bowl, especially too after like the first 3 or 4 minutes of the game, was really almost sold out. The Panther Pit obviously was not as packed as what it usually is with 11,000, 12,000 people as the students are on fall break. So I certainly give them a break. It's not a big deal. We kind of expected that going in. But overall, the general public, guys, it was tough looking at the upper deck, really on the away side that was just really bare, to say the least. What is crazy to me is, again, I understand I wanted between 50 to 55,000. I still say it was really at that 46, 47,000 mark is where we were really at. Guys, this is a football team that's 5-0, now going on to 6-0. For a national perception standard, I understand that our stadium that we play in currently right now is 70,000 seats. 70,000 in capacity with standing room. It's about 72,000 with extra overflow. I get that. And I understand it's one of the larger stadiums in college football outside of, the notable ones, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State. You get those. Obviously you look at Oregon, 55,000 last night was a packed house at 55,000 against Ohio State. Utah has a place that's 55,000. TCU at 45,000. Baylor at 45,000. You look at a number of places, especially in the Big 12, the ACC. North Carolina at 52,000. Georgia Tech's going to be below it at 50,000. Overall, I understand that we have a larger stadium than all these schools. But when you're looking at a program like Pitt right now that has, in reality, I still think he has a great shot, especially too with 6 games remaining. Eli Holstein in the conversation, being able to have a quarterback who's in the Heisman race, all ACC race, national recognition. Pitt 6-0 for the first time since 1982. Guys, there is absolutely, positively zero reason why there is not at least 55,000 on a Thursday night when Syracuse comes to town in 2 weeks. Because overall, when sitting on the home side, and really not being able to see up top, and I had friends who were on the other side sending me pictures of what it looked like. They're like, Jay, it looks good up top on the home side. From a national perspective, guys, that shit really needs to change. I understand if people don't want to go if Pitt's having a bad year like last year. That totally makes sense. But the national perception, and I understand that it's a larger stadium, we're still averaging 48,700, 48,000, 49,000. That's really in the average of everybody else. Heck, West Virginia is just below that. They had a coal rush yesterday. They had 55,000 fans. Didn't even sell out that game. They lost to number 11 Iowa State. Go figure. But for Pitt being 6-0, guys, there's just no reason for it. I understand when Pitt's not playing well, that people don't want to go and support the team. I get it. But when you see this team and how they're playing on their worst day, where the offense, in reality, couldn't get really anything going. You saw California playing really a too high safety look the majority of the game, deep sets to where they're really covering the long, deep throws. They really shut down Pitt's defense. I expect Cade Bell to be in the dome to where he is going through numerous tape to correct what he needs to correct, which that's why I'm not worried. I'm also not worried about Eli Holstein. The defense played a hell of a game. The one game where I said, obviously my score prediction was wrong. I had us scoring 41 points. I also had us giving up 24 points. We only gave up 17. Besides the first drive of the game, I mean, overall, that was a tremendous job. 6 sacks from this defense, 3 sacks from Jimmy Scott, an outbreak, a game of just of epic proportions for him. Braylon Lovelace gets the start as Rasheem Biles is out. He'll be back against Syracuse. Key Thompson was back this week. Nick James was back this week. You saw numerous pressures, and we had 6 sacks overall, but when it comes to pressures, it was roughly about 15, 16 pressures overall in this football game. Guys, this team's playing a great brand of football. People really need to start showing up. The excuse of, well, we're waiting for, potentially, people think about it, because I heard it yesterday, and it was the most loser mentality I've ever seen in my entire life. Well, the people are probably expecting them to blow it here or there, or one loss here. Even if they did lose yesterday, they're still 5-1. They're still competing for an ACC title. What the hell are we doing? But what's even worse is they win the football game and the majority of people weren't there. That's unacceptable. For these players who are working their asses off every single day and they're doing their job and winning, what the hell are we doing? It's crazy. When Pitt loses the game, my comment section's filled, man. What the hell? JJ, you're an asshole. How the hell did you think they were going to win this game? What are you doing? How could you think that? This is what Pitt does, pitting, all the bullshit that comes along with that. But when this team's winning, where are the real fans at? And going into Thursday night is going to be a critical game on national television. Again, as we were this past weekend, we are on national television. The ratings will come out, I think, officially tomorrow or Tuesday, to see the viewership on the game. But, guys, this is a football team that is currently 6-0 for the first time since 1982. It's an electric offense. One game does not define an offense. For 5 straight games, Eli Holstein threw for over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns a game. Hell, against North Carolina, he had 4 touchdowns overall with 3 passing, one running. Guys, this is a generational season, what they're building. Also, too, nationally with recruits who are there. I have those conversations. I see them. Luckily, numerous recruits said the atmosphere was great. It was still loud, even though it wasn't packed. We really need to make some adjustments, guys. In 2021, when Clemson came to town, Pitt had 61. We had 61,000 people here. Pitt won that game. I got news for you. This team's going to need that going forward. This schedule in the second half of this season, Syracuse, SMU, Clemson, Virginia, Boston College, majority of them have 1 loss. Syracuse has 1 loss. SMU has 1 loss. Clemson has 1 loss. Boston College has 2. One was to a top 10 opponent. It's really time to get on board with supporting this team. And the lackluster bullshit excuse of we're potentially thinking that this team's going to lose and we're not going to show up, that shit doesn't fly no more. Every year's a new year. It's 6-0. There's a national perception. We're going through massive change in college football. And I'm being honest with you guys. It needs to get better on Pitt's end. People are very quickly able to shoot out options and opinions about, they lost this game. What the hell? How come Pitt's not recruiting this guy, but they're recruiting this guy? This shit has a lot to do with it. It has to be better. To the people that showed up, that supported this team on Saturday, shout out to you. And it was great to meet numerous of you again. Why you love Pitt, why you go, why you were disappointed and people didn't show up or that made a last-minute decision that they didn't want to go. They missed out. So the fans that show up every single week, you guys matter. And it's why the reason that the players work and play as hard as they possibly can. To the people that have, missed games before, where they've missed numerous games, it's time to start showing up. Because the conversations around what Pitt looked like in the stands rather than what they did on the field. And that has got to change. This team is winning. And even if they did lose yesterday, they were still 5-1. They could lose to Syracuse on a Thursday night. They're 6-1. Who gives a shit? They're still fighting for the ACC title. They still have Clemson on the schedule. Clemson has Miami on the schedule. Clemson still has the rest of their ACC schedule to go. And for how close their games are, things can change on a dime. This has to get better. While 47,000 isn't bad, it's not great. It can get better. It should get better. We're in the midst of a major difference-making year, regaining all of the momentum that we had after 2021. We are regaining right now. We are in a massive movement to where this really trickles on down the road. Show up to the games. Support this team. Become an Alliance 412 member. Talk to people. Build relationships. I cannot tell you how valuable and important this is. You can't just sit down and lollygag around anymore. The age of college football that we're in, there are massive moves being made. And it's a dog-eat-dog world out there right now. And they don't give a shit about what your history was, anything. What have you done for me lately? We got to start showing up. It's that simple. But into the comment section as I get my spiel there. Smash the like button and subscribe. WRW Pitt, as always, first in the comments. Thank you so much. If you haven't done so, subscribe. Cal has a well-coached defense. They were in a lot of passing lanes. WRW Pitt, yeah, again, they were in a cover two high the majority of the game, really covering the deep passes, deep throws. We just looked disoriented at times. We were actually able to run the football effectively at times, obviously. Cade Bell really drawing up a run for Desmond Reed right in the sand on the sideline was pretty incredible to listen to the players talk about that. Overall, I thought the offensive line did actually a really good job. We saw improvement there. But overall, when you look at this day, I think Gavin Bartholomew had a number of good catches as well. I expect him to really start to take off as the season goes on because we're going to need more guys to step up as this season goes on, the teams that we're facing now. But this day really belonged to the defense. Jimmy Scott played a hell of a football game. Nick James played a hell of a football game. Sean Fitzsimmons played a hell of a football game. Sincere Edwards, Nate Matlack. You saw guys like Braylon Lovelace, Kyle Lewis. Kyle Lewis is not he's not an all-ACC player. He's an all-American at this point. The way that he is playing, guys, the numbers don't lie. Losing Solomon DeShields and Bengali Kamara has actually helped Pitt see the player that they currently had in Kyle Lewis. I mean, you look at the Sharks overall, and again, shout out to Ryan Manilak, the way he has recruited, what he's been able to do in terms of development. Kyle Lewis playing at a high level, Brandon George, Rasheem Biles, Braylon Lovelace. You saw Jordan Basket on the football field this week. Overall, it's a collectively great group of linebackers. Keith Thompson came back 100% again. This team, it was just so good to see that when one day where the offense wasn't playing well, in 5 games, we've had over 500 yards of offense every game. This week, how much offense did we have? It wasn't very much, I can promise you that. We had 277 yards of offense, way below our average. And the Pitt defense allowed 335, the majority of it really coming on that first drive, and they took it really, 85 yards. Cal also possessed the ball, as you can imagine, with the way our offense goes anyways. 38 minutes and 30 seconds. We had it for 21 minutes and 30 seconds. Overall, the way this defense played, man, after that first drive, I was beyond concerned. I mean, it wasn't even just assignment-based. It was just looking soft. And then after that, clearly Pitt took a lot of offense to that. Narduzzi and the coaches, especially Randy Bates, Ryan Manilak, Tim Doust, Archie Collins, Corey Sanders, really pulling them together to understand, hey, we got to win this football game here. We got to be aggressive. So really the day belonged to the defense, and I want to shout them out because it was just a tremendous outing overall, especially when they started to figure out how to guard the Cal tight end. That was really efficient as well. Overall, it belonged to the defense. Let's hope there's a coming out party for the defense. Well, they haven't been playing too bad, but overall, let's hope it stays consistent like this. This would be some crazy stuff for the rest of the year with our offense. Chalking it up as a learning experience. Football Hawks 6-0, baby, 100%. I believe Cal was playing their safeties deep. They did a job presenting the long pass. Yeah, they were playing cover 2 deep the entire game. Never even changed it. D-line is certainly getting better every game. I can promise you that. PJM, Gavin was wide open on the shallow cross when Eli threw the pick in the end zone. Assume he was never went through his second and third progressions. Pass rush deflected the passes, affected his progressions. Yeah, it was just one of those games where he was going to really show up as a rookie or as a freshman. That was that game. He did not play well. Multiple interceptions. I thought the end zone one was obviously really bad. I didn't know where he was throwing that. The one that was really almost in double coverage over the middle of the field was trying to lead him too much. That was the second one. But overall, I think just it's one game. If it's more than one game, then we can start to have a conversation. But you look at it was a bad game yesterday by him. Hey, you know what? after 5 great games, and then obviously helping out and really helping out your defense for the majority of the season, where the first half of the games where the defense kind of struggled, and then obviously in the second half, the defense have been great. It was great to see the Pitt defense play a full, complete game yesterday. But overall, give Eli Holstein props. The guy's an ultimate pro. Talked about how it's on him. It wasn't on the coach, just wasn't on any of the players. He said he played like a freshman. He saw some different things than what he's used to seeing. Realized that, made some mistakes. They still came out victorious. If you're a team that plays its worst, it's played all year, and you still win, tells you that, you know what, this is a good football team. It found a way to win, and that's what matters the most. While it was on one of the worst days how Pitt played offensively, this was easily by far the best game Pitt's played defensively all year long. So to your point, PJ, I aggression. The overall progressions didn't go through second and third because of what he was seeing. From your podcast yesterday, JJ, the question arose on Saul's kick. The broadcaster said it was a tied record of 58 yards, and Saul's wants the record of 59. Yes, that is correct. I think overall, it's 58. Yeah, the 59 would be the actual record in Acrisure Stadium. So we'll see if he gets that 59-yarder. And I can tell you this, they would have certainly made it to 59 or 60 yards. I mean, Saul's absolutely crushed that thing. Mark, very interesting article today in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette today on Light's departure and the importance of football and basketball as the revenue-producing sports, thinking this fits in with your feedback on attendance. Yeah, Mark, at the end of the day, obviously my attendance thing goes back to a lot of different things and a lot of shit that's been bothering me in terms of supporting this team this year. But I think that overall, and I've said this before, Heather Lake, a tremendous athletic director, the best one in my lifetime. I sit here at 30 years old. I think the best one in my lifetime. But what I can tell you is this. Her plan going forward when it was thrown to Joan Gable was concerning. The lack of outside support, the lack of outside funding was a major issue. Also, too, she didn't want to just focus on football and basketball. She wanted to separate the money through all sports, even non-revenue. I think that was a little concerning. Also, too, just the revenue. The fundraising outside of that was a big issue. The lack of support and the lack of overall buy-in with NIL was a major factor. And the way that football and college football is going to the future, you need someone who's a visionary that understands where we're going into the future and what this football program needs to do. At the end of the day, I love Pitt, but Pitt's not Georgia. Pitt's not Alabama. Pitt's not Tennessee. You know, call a spade a spade. It's not Ohio State. It's not Michigan. This program needs to be creative and needs to focus on the important aspects of generating revenue, building corporate sponsorships, business development, understanding what brings us money, what helps us raise money, where are we going in the future in terms of being able to divvy up $22 to $25 million a year when it comes to revenue sharing with players. There really wasn't a plan for that. What are we going to do in terms of the settlement for each year, what we have to dish out annually for the court case that was just recently handed down, national letter of intent. It's not been erased, but it's all being jumbled into one to where it's going to be really one fiscal document to where you're really focusing on the player with one document to where, you know, traditionally Pat Narduzzi would walk into a player's room or a player's house and say, hey, here's 2 papers. One, your official scholarship. Boom. Your scholarship as a player, you're on our roster. You belong to University of Pittsburgh. Your commitment is with us. Once you sign that, it's over. Legally, you are a part of University of Pittsburgh. The second document, the money aspect. Your scholarship overall, you're getting paid, a stipend, your actual your room and board, your books, your overall tuition, everything's paid for. Your 2 documents. Now it's into one to where you need to focus on that to what national letter of intent looks like now. There's no plan for that. I mean, just overall, she lacked the vision going forward. It's a fact. I mean, I know a lot of people loved Heather. I liked Heather. But I'm being honest from a perspective of what was told to me and how I understood it. And when more than one person tells me this, and it's to a T of what they said before and before that and before that and before that, it's the truth. You know, being able to check multiple times and hearing from multiple people. Yeah, Jay, that sounds right. Yeah, there's also that. And then there's also this as well. It's a fact. And we're going through this right now. Obviously, she was let go in the beginning of week 3 when Pitt was going to face West Virginia. So it's really been about 5 weeks now. We're going into week 6. They're looking at people and they're going through a thorough process. They're looking at the overall court cases that are being decided right now. Obviously, with athletic scholarships, there's more scholarships now that are going to cost more money. The University of Texas released out Chris Del Conte, the athletic director at University of Texas, talked about how with the additional scholarships to all sports across the board with football, basketball, baseball, all the stuff that they do, it's going to be roughly around $10 million more. Do I expect Pitt to add all the scholarships in with every other sport? No. Do I expect all those sports to survive? No. I really think Pitt's going to do what's right, and they're going to focus on the front porch. And it was really good to see. If you guys read Joan Gable's statement when she originally first relieved Heather Lyke of her duties, the first thing that she mentioned in there is that, again, and I've said this before too, and I saw that, I'm like, man, she gets it, and everything I was told about her is great. I love it. She mentioned on there that the athletics, especially football, is the front porch to every university. Whether you agree with that or you don't, it doesn't matter. It's a fact. It drives revenue. It drives revenue for the university, and it also supports the other sports at the University of Pittsburgh that do not make money. I mean, it's a fact. I love basketball. I don't know much about it in terms of development and whatnot like I do with football. Obviously, that's why I talk about football and not all sports, because I don't know the topic. But overall, basketball is great, but it makes a little bit of money, not much, if any. The revenue and what it makes on a consistent basis is football. And you're looking at all these schools around the country getting ready to focus on football. Pitt is joining that force, and it's the right thing to do. It may not be fair, may seem cruel. It's how it is at this point, and that's what they have to do. Mark, any more thoughts on on-campus stadium, or is that on pause until the new athletic director announced to reassess? A lot of it has to do with the athletic director that comes in. Obviously, things can change on a dime, how they're going to do things. I know part of the 10-year plan, obviously, Pitt has their model made up. They've certainly paid for the feasibility study, the actual model of the stadium. I know that's already done. That actually may have been released, too, by a couple people who were released news. Obviously, Heather Lyke paid over six figures for a model that's been built. I still think it gets done. Joan Gable has expressed her desire of understanding. Hey, I don't think it's a need. I think it's a necessity. I mean, I don't think it's a want. It's a necessity. We're seeing that on a day in and day out basis. Again, I don't give Pitt fans an excuse of that. Show up to games. I'm not expecting 70,000 people, but I am expecting 55 to 60,000 people every game, especially with a team that's winning. But I expect there to be one. There's a part of a 10-year plan. More people I talk to, especially too, whether it's through just Pitt or UPMC, there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes as a part of a massive plan. In Oakland, obviously between the hospitals being built, major redevelopment in terms of what Oakland looks like. Obviously Oakland is going through a massive renovation right now. I was actually down there for work not too long ago, about a week and a half ago, and just as how vibrant it is down there with the students. It's so vibrant. It's a lot newer. The major upgrades that have currently happened. Obviously, what still hurts, though, is there's still not enough people down there. The O, didn't survive. Hemingway's didn't survive. That kind of stuff just sucks because it's true history down in Oakland. But I think overall that kind of stuff's going to change. And again, I give props to Heather Lyke because she upgraded the Pete severely. She upgraded all the sports facilities severely. That really needed it. And I think the Peterson Event Center is truly top 10 in the country. When you look at the overall space, you look at the overall renovations, Mascaro Construction, the amount of work they did there in terms of upgrades, new scoreboards, new seating, upgrades in the club area, upgrades to the IC light area for the general public, obviously, with a great area and end zone that is over in the Peterson Event Center. She's done massive amounts of jobs. But now that that's done, it's time to go focus on other things in terms of what this university needs to do to be successful. And they're certainly doing that by moving on from Heather and looking for that next person. So we'll see. But overall, guys, it will always come down to what that new plan is. But that 10-year plan is out there, and a campus stadium is a part of that, or a Pitt stadium is a part of that. But we'll see with the new athletic director. Things can change on a dime. The athletic director comes in. They're having conversations behind closed doors. They're looking at candidates. I would think probably by the end of October, beginning of November, I think we probably have a signal about maybe who we have, potentially even a name release, probably about who's being hired or who's in contention. We'll keep you certainly up to date with that, though. Great questions by you guys tonight, by the way. An on-campus stadium will never happen. Jeff, I'm sorry, man. I disagree with that from what I've seen. Your comment won't age well, Jeff. Yeah, I agree. From what I've seen, I don't buy it. This game reminded me a lot of the Cincy game with the unique looks and defensive backfield, confusing Holstein. Any reason why he didn't commit more to run or find as much success in the second half? Well, a lot of stuff just didn't change. I think overall, when Cal really made a lot of adjustments with their too high, they really defended the overall deep ball. They didn't want to get beat deep because obviously they know Pitt's receivers can go deep, make a lot of great catches. There's a lot of film, obviously, on Pitt throwing the ball deep, pushing the ball downfield. But also, too, I think there's a little bit too much of an emphasis on running the football, too. I think there are a lot of times where you saw that issue to where guys weren't creating space, but then also, too, diving right back into the run. And I think just overall, Cade Bell continues to learn. I think overall, when you look at this offense, it was just a bad day. Sometimes things don't go your way. And when that doesn't go your way, you need your defense to step up. And in Pitt's case, the defense did step up. Feeling good, Pitt won. Steelers fashion, relying on their D with average offenses, and Steelers won. Pat Narduzzi style offense style today, so I guess it's opposite week. Darren, I mean, at the end of the day, yeah, for what the Steelers are doing, hey, I saw it today. Congrats to them. They beat, obviously a horrific Oakland, Las Vegas Raiders team. Looked like a home game for the Steelers for all who was there. I think what they're sitting at like 4-2 right now. Their easy games are up. I can tell you this, though. You look at their offense, man, it's still struggling. They got to figure it out and open it up, but I don't expect them to. And that's just kind of the Mike Tomlin way. And give Pat Narduzzi credit. Pat Narduzzi is not old style anymore, man. He embraced it. And he brought in a guy like Cade Bell. That's not being old school anymore. Pat Narduzzi, give him credit. A lot of similarities to Mike Tomlin, but the major difference is he's embracing change because he wants to win football games. I think Mike Tomlin hasn't, and that's going to be a major factor later on. Yeah, Jeff, I disagree. And if we had a 45,000 on-campus stadium, we still wouldn't feel that for that game. That's wrong too. So I mean, yeah, let's just be with you. Huge step up the D line against what looked like a particularly chippy Cal offensive line. Yeah, you know what? Honestly, though, Cal's a good football team in terms of the record doesn't show it, but when you look at the way they're coached, the problem is they're losing games down the stretch. Obviously, you look at the field goal they missed out at the end of the game. Obviously, they just allowed numerous sacks throughout the game. I thought there was still good overall structure of what their offense was able to do. I thought the tight end usage was pretty good overall. They just couldn't sustain drives, whether it was dumb penalties they had or just the sacks overall. I think they had a good game plan overall. They certainly did their due diligence on what they wanted to do against Pitt. But Pitt's defense showed up. They made the corrections they needed to make to win that football game and to be a dominant defense in this age of college football where all of the rules are truly against the defense. You barely can make a tackles. You can barely hit the quarterback. They did a good job. And I think that overall you saw this D-line really play a good football game. Nick James played a really good football game. Sean Fitzsimmons going forward. Again, those will be your two starters going forward. Francis Brayu played a hell of a football game. Jimmy Scott, again, broke out, had a hell of a football game. Same thing with Sincere Edwards. I thought he played well. Kyle Lewis and Braylon Lovelace. Braylon Lovelace with 3 or 4 sacks in the game. That was tremendous. I mean, the amount of tackles overall, just really good job by the defense, but more importantly, it was really good to see that defensive line play at a high level. Let me see here the stats-wise. When you look at these stats, and obviously Cal now 0-3 in conference play. Looking at the box score here, when I watched the tape again, yeah, I mean, guys, Cal rushed for 63 total yards in the game. I mean, that's about as good as you can have it. I mean, and Javian Thomas, obviously, if you take away some of the actual yards to where, you take away some sacks and some actual runs that Mendoza didn't have. I mean, Javian Thomas ran the ball 17 times for 72 yards. They held him under 100 yards. Good day in terms of the defense. 272 yards passing, 27 of 37. Obviously, Eli Holstein is at 50% passing, which is much lower than what he's usually at. Only 133 yards, 0 TDs, 2 interceptions. Obviously not his day. But obviously, to the running game, Pitt was able to rush for 144 yards and 28 carries. Desmond Reed, another breakout game overall, 16 carries, 120 yards, 7.5 average, and 2 tutties. You looked at the passing game. Kanate Mumfield, 3 catches for 37 yards. Kenny Johnson, 4 catches for 34 yards. Gavin Bartholomew, 3 catches for 29 yards. Desmond Reed, 1 catch and 19. That one over the middle on 4th down. Tremendous draw up by Cade Bell. Raphael Poppy Williams, 2 catches for 12 yards. And then Jake Overman, 1 catch for 2 yards. Feeling great, though. Pitt won. Steelers won, but it's opposite week. Panthers barely won, and Fields and Watt won by 32 in Vegas. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a Steelers fan, so I'm focused on Pitt. But, hey, good for the Steelers. They needed to pad up a couple of these wins here in the early part of the schedule because I think they're in for a rough stretch going on throughout the rest of the year. Ryan Rosado, my man, held a Pitt. Big win. The Cal defense is good. Good to see Pitt defense step up. Couldn't agree more. It was good to see the defense overall. Jeff, I'm with you. I absolutely don't understand the idea of not attending a game because your team might lose. Yeah, Jeff, I don't understand it either. I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's just a very weak excuse. And when I heard it, it kind of frustrated me pretty good. Just with the lack of belief, but just such a loser mentality. I couldn't imagine living that way. I know season ticket holders that won't donate to NIL, but will complain about losing guys. I don't get it, man. Yeah, Adam, and guess what? Those people who do that, they're part of the problem. And those are the same dumbass people that ask the question, well, why can't they recruit this guy? Why can't they recruit that guy? Well, it comes down to NIL, whether you like that shit or not. It doesn't matter. If you don't want to support it, that's fine, but don't be one of the stupid individuals that say, well, I can't believe it. We're not recruiting at a high level. We're not in the top 15 in recruiting. Well, what are you doing, bud? It's that simple. I agree, Adam. I mean, that's beyond frustrating hearing that, especially when all of us are involved with Alliance 412 and supporting it. That's been the reality of Pitt's fan base forever. Adam complained, but don't help to fix the problem. Amen, Jeff. I was there. I thought the home side looked decent. Student section, even with students off, looked pretty full, although they didn't stick around. Glad we were able to pull it out. Amen. Agree on attendance, but we had at least 10,000 that never went into the stadium. I don't get that. Yeah, Brandon, it is what it is. Again, after looking at the whole stadium and watching the highlights and actually being there, I agree with it's probably 46, 47,000 overall from what was reported. But, at the end of the day, it is what it is. But again, it needs to get better. And again, I'm going to be doing the Pack the Act this week. It needs to happen. We're on national television on a Thursday night for a 6-0 football team. Under zero reason why this stadium should not have 50 to 60,000 in it. Zero reason. Zero. Hopefully the defense has improved and it just wasn't just a sign of Cal having a poor O-line play. I think they have improved because guess what? You looked at a number of other teams that had bad offensive lines where we didn't get as much pressure. This team did. I think there's a major breakout game and a lot of confidence instilled in these guys. I take it as great D. I agree. This defense played a great game, guys. It's not just because it was or Cal's a bad football team, all this stuff. All their games, their losses combined, the total margin of loss has been 12 points overall. They're a good football team. They just don't know how to win close games. They're a good football team. The Pitt defense stepped up. I have to admit, Jason Traiola, based on the first 5 games of the season, I didn't think the defense would show up. Man, I would be wrong. My question to you, JJ, is, will this version of the defense show up every week? Well, Jason, I hope so. That's being completely honest with you. When you get to talk to players after the game, it was kind of like this is like a turn on the light moment, a light bulb moment. And why that is, there's a majority of young guys on this team. You look across the board, it's the majority of these guys on defense are all brand new guys in this system. You're plugging and playing guys that are younger guys, number one, but number two, had no experience in this defense. Besides the back end, you had Donovan McMillan and Javon McIntyre, and they played tremendous throughout the year. Same with Cruz Brookins, Rylan Gandy. But Timon Lyman's still learning. The other defensive backs are still learning. Rashad Battle, who's been out majority of these years, is still learning. He played a great game yesterday. The block in the back call on defense, by the way, on Rashad Battle, I have no idea what the hell they were talking about. In the history of sports and in the history of me watching college football, I've never seen that shit my entire life. That was the most blatant, just legitimately stupid call I've ever seen in my life. And the ACC has just got a wrap up just bad officiating this year. It's across the board. It's bad. I mean, and it's not just the ACC. It's been every conference. There's been a lot of it, but a lot of focus on the ACC. A block in the back on defense. I don't know how in God's name that happens, or how that's even called, how that's even technically allowed to be called, because it's not physically possible unless they have an interception, they return it. But then he wasn't getting an interception; he was making a tackle. So how the hell is there a block in the back if he's I don't know, or a block below the waist? I don't understand that. But good play overall by Rashad Battle. Did a tremendous job on the play. He did nothing wrong. But to your point, Jason, from talking to numerous defensive guys, the light bulb really turned on for a lot of these guys, and they're clicking in the right direction. They understand what this defense looks like. They understand what they need to do. I think overall, when it comes to game planning, these guys are focused in. They understand how close this game was. The defense stepped up like it had to. I expect this defense maybe not be this perfect all the time, but I expect the defense to continue to bring pressure like it has throughout the entire season, but really play collectively a full football game the majority of the time, to be quite honest with you. Let's see here. I wish this version of the defense shows up to Pitt usual offense. We really got something. Amen. JJ, I agree with every word you said regarding attendance, but many of the casual fans suck. A gentleman behind me asked me to sit down when I stood up for the Pitt defense on Cal's third downs. Gary, I've had a lot of those people as well. I push back on people like that. I just tell them, you know what, then I don't know why you're here then. I mean, this isn't a funeral. We're not at mass. We're not at a daily function where, there's a speaker talking, where everyone's sitting down and staying quiet. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, I dealt with those, and I really push back on people like that. I mean, like I paid to go to a football game and have an experience. I'm not going to sit there and be quiet because you want me to sit there and be quiet. So I agree. I feel bad that you had to go through that, Gary, and I apologize you had to go through that. Feeling great, though. Pitt won. And it's not Penn State. I don't know. I don't know what you mean, but I know I'm happy that Pitt won. Derek, people need to stop with the attendance BS. I saw some moron say there was 12,000 there. Pitt's fan base is its own worst enemy. It was fall break and a Jewish holiday. Yeah, but at the same time, though, man, I mean, realistically, there should have been more people there. If that was a major case, then there should have. I understand what you're saying about the 12,000. That's absolute bullshit. I mean, that actually doesn't make any sense at all. When you actually look at the game and being there, or even watching it on television, that doesn't make any sense. Again, 47,000 people were there. But when it comes to the majority of this fan base, you look around college football, Oregon was packed at 55,000. You look across the ACC, numerous stadiums were packed. There's got to be more people there supporting it. I understand the Panther pit not being as full from in the bottom and up top. I understand that. But the general public, sorry, there's just no excuse for that. But to your point about the 12,000 people, yeah, that's bullshit. But still, it's Thursday night. This place better be rocking. Acrisure Stadium better be rocking on Thursday night. Thursday night with a 6-0 team with a 5-1 Syracuse coming in here is technically a rivalry game. I really don't see as much of that. Rivalries are really, West Virginia and Penn State for me. But this is a game that's usually always heated back and forth. Pitt fans need to show up to this game. It's that simple. And a guy like you, Derek, who makes the drive really almost every home game, or every home game is, incredible. And you live in North Carolina. So, if you can make it, everybody else can make it. Let's be real. Football first and basketball second pay the bills for most colleges. Yeah, 100%. That's why I was talking about that with football and basketball. Basketball doesn't really make it really any money at all. It's usually just football. But at the end of the day, the more the focus is football, yes, number one. 100% football is number one, and then basketball is number two for sure. What is the solution to the attendance issue? Running promos and ticketing depth to gain exposure. No, it's way smaller, but when Pitt was good, 04, 15 was unbelievable. Yeah, John, to your point, I think Pitt's marketing department can always do a little bit better. But also, too, I do this, and again, I'm just being honest. I do this podcast because growing up and having Pitt fans reach out to me and having people that worked at Pitt reached out to me, we just need more actual positivity towards the team and actual news, actual coverage of a team. Again, by no means am I a journalist, and I love the journalists that we have. I think Chris Peak does a great job. Mike Foucault he does a great job. Jim Hammett does a great job. Christopher Carter, I think he does a great job. Stephen Thompson, he does a great job. I think those guys do an incredible job overall. But we need a massive following to where it's constant, where we're pushing out legitimate news. Like 93.7 The Fan, if it wasn't for Doran, I think is an absolutely horrendous station. On the day of the one time I have it on, it's during the Backyard Brawl game day, and Filipponi, who's a Syracuse guy, and Mueller, who's a Penn State guy, are going to talk to me about Pitt, who they rarely look at or even watch, don't watch at all, and talk to me and talk about how 17-6 wasn't close to West Virginia. Kenny Pickett. How did Kenny Pickett turn out with the Steelers? Like, yeah, Kenny Pickett was a Heisman candidate and only won an ACC title at Pitt. Yeah, I don't care, Filipponi. I don't give a shit what you think. He did a great job at Pitt. Mueller, I don't care what you think about Kenny Pickett. Like, what about the players on the actual roster? Eli Holstein competing for a potential Heisman Trophy. He's on the verge of doing legitimately something that's never been done before at Pitt. He's matched Dan Marino in winning his first 5 starts. Now he's won his first 6 starts. Dan Marino didn't even do that. There's so much other positive stuff. First time 5-0 since 1993. Now we're 6-0 for the first time since 1982. And even in that moment, they won 2 straight games. They're going into a home game against West Virginia. I just don't get it. And I understand we live in a town that's run by the Steelers. At the end of the day, that's the truth. But just, a little bit of positive notes. I don't get it. I don't know why that's our flagship station. Preferably me. I think it would be great if Pitt would do an annual show out of the Pitt studios, show off the Pitt studios, the things that you actually built and paid for. Pitt journalists, allow Pitt journalists who are in journalist school, University of Pittsburgh for media. Let them do a show. Bring people on there, former players, maybe hire a former player or have Doran or other people go on where they interview players. They do a daily recap. Look at something like, down in West Virginia, they have 3 guys before the game. They're always sticking up for the University, the West Virginia University. Just something has to change on that end. The national media and some writers who covered who covered Pitt even would come out afterwards and be like, well, I could care less about Pitt. Well, that's not your job, buddy. If you don't like it, then get the hell out of it. Quit wasting other people's time and actually want to see this stuff, because the program grows and the university and the flagship of the university, where it's football, continues to grow based off of coverage. That's why I do this show. And I've met so many people in media through this show, people who I respect and watched growing up, come to me and tell me that they love watching this. Real, actual journalists who are now retired. That's like an ultimate total respect from those people. That's like flattering to not even be in their league and to say, hey, they watched some of the shows. That's great. But we need more positivity. We need actual reporting in the national media. And we don't get that because the Steelers have all the coverage. And while I understand it when they're winning the majority of the time, what really gets the coverage overall is the negative stuff from the Steelers. So if the Steelers lose, like you saw last week, people are losing their minds because they lost to a horrendous Dallas Cowboys team. The Steelers win this week against a horrendous Las Vegas Raiders team, but they lose last week to a horrible football team in Dallas Cowboys. You got people calling in from everywhere talking about the Steelers. When Pitt loses a bad game or something like that, people jump on board about that. Rarely ever do they talk about something positive, because positivity does not drive the ratings. Unfortunately, just kind of society we're in at this point. Guys, while we're also here, we're now over 753 people in the chat. Guys, again, between X and YouTube, if you're on X, head on over to YouTube, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. We continue to grow at a rapid rate because of you guys. And as always, you guys ask some pretty damn good questions, I have to say. You guys always ask good questions, and it's a lot of fun talking about the game overall, everything from top to bottom. Cal has 3 losses by a total of 8 points. All right, I thought it was 12. If they didn't go for 2 points on their first TD, they wouldn't have had to try and gone for it again later on, which they didn't convert on. Amen, T-Man. That's a good point. Jake, I can't stop thinking about that 58-yard field goal in Pitt and missed a 40-yard field goal was a difference in the game. Pitt has been blessed with some truly great kickers in the recent years. Jake, this is a great point. Again, it's almost like it's automatic from Ben Sauls at this point. I'm pretty sure when you watch that kick go through the uprights, it was easily going to be able to go through 60, 61, 62 yards. A tremendous kick by him. He's going to be in the NFL next year for sure. Ben Sauls will be an NFL kicker next year. That'll be fun to watch him at the next level. And then, yeah, obviously, Cal missing a field goal was a bad snap, and then just obviously going wide right. We've been lucky, man. Field goal and special teams are truly important to college football and the NFL. Special teams. That's where it starts. And right now, Pitt special teams is playing at a much higher level, less penalties. Jacob Bronowski, the new tight end and special teams coordinator, has done a phenomenal job. He's done a great job of getting guys to buy into the process of how they do things, and they've gotten better every single week. And again, the special teams has been really good. I have to admit I was wrong about the defense base on the first 5 games of the season. My question to you, JJ, is can Pitt defense keep this up? Jason, I think it can. Because you're seeing, it's not like it's all veteran guys. It's all like veteran guys like past years where you kind of just said, hey, it kind of is what it is. They're not going to change. They've been here for how long? Nick James, a young guy, just came in his first year here at Pitt, young guy in the portal. You look at Sean Fitzsimmons, a young guy who's been in here, but obviously he's been through injuries. He's here. Obviously, he's a young guy. Francis Breu, the third defensive tackle. It's his first year on campus. He's a young guy. Sincere Edwards, a true freshman. He's playing defensive end. He's a young guy. Chief Border, he just came in from another university in Nebraska. He's still a young guy. He still needed more time. Look at Nate Matlack, a veteran guy, but his first year in the defense. He needed time. Jimmy Scott continues to play at a high level. He's been getting more and more time. He's on the field more. He actually has real game reps. Look at him break out this week. I just think overall, I understand where a lot of the frustration comes from, especially too from myself when I watch the defense. There's just some stuff that bothers me. But obviously, as you saw the game go on after that first drive, Pitt went on just a clinic after that. But it's a young defense. There's a lot of guys that are young that are playing for the first time. You're going to go through a stretch where they have to learn. They need game reps to see, okay, hey, when we run our typical base, when we scan and we run base defense, but also too, if we're running our Delta package, what do we usually see? When we're running our base package, what do we usually see? When we're running stunts up front, what do we usually see? And my gap assignment, what do we usually see? All that stuff comes with experience. They just need experience. So you're seeing this defense get better and better. So I think it actually can continue on, especially too with their mindset and their mental ability to say, hey, this is how we play our defense at Pitt. It's a travesty that a 2-loss Ole Miss team that lost to a garbage Kentucky team is ranked ahead of Pitt. Jake, that pisses me off. That makes no sense to me. Missouri being ahead of Pitt, 1 spot ahead of Pitt makes no sense to me. The good thing is the AP poll doesn't matter. It's all about the college football playoff. The college football playoff ranking is the only one that matters. And you'll see a lot of changes that goes through. I'm pretty sure that comes out week 8, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's I want to say, what is it? Is it the last week? Or it might be week 9. Is it the last week of October, the first week of November? It's somewhere around there. It gets close. I think once Pitt's through like 8 or 9 games is when that originally comes out. The only solution to attendance to the problem is putting a team on the field that the casual Pittsburgher thinks is a national contender. Or just consistently wins. It's up there. But then again, you can't help the laziness of the fan base. The students and Pitt diehards will always show up, but the casual fan in town demands not just a winner, but a very high-level winner. That's a good point. Yeah, cool. Agree with everything tonight. How about only 7,000 Larry Fitz bobbleheads available for the next game? Yeah, that's pretty wild too. But guess what? That just means, hey, there's more of a demand to get into the stadium. So, in a way, I'm okay with that. Get in the stadium. Derek, Jimmy Scott was a beast. The D was hard hitting. Amen. Derek, couldn't agree more. Again, it was a coming out party for the defense. Got nothing negative to say. I thought the crowd was pretty good as far as being into the game. We won when we didn't play that great offensively. We are 6-0. Hail to Mother effing Pitt. Steve, couldn't agree more. We are 6-0. That's what matters. This team hasn't fired on all cylinders yet. When, not if, they do, this team will be very hard to beat. Amen. If we continue to see this type of level of defense with our offense going back to how it usually plays, I'll tell you this: we win the next 2 or 3 games. Really, when we're 8-0, 9-0, guys, the college football playoff conversation is coming on board. And I think if Pitt loses 1 or 2 games, I still think it finds a way into the college football playoff at an at-large bid, because the college football playoff rankings are the ones that matter, not the AP. Fitzsimmons and James really helped the DNs get more one-on-one matchups. I couldn't agree more. The ACC had the worst officiating of all power conferences for a few years now, in my opinion. That's a strong case. I think Hammond's absence was due to game flow, some injury, or some other reason. I just think it's hard to take Desmond Reed off the field. Daniel Carter, I think they wanted to go with some bigger backs in some tight situations. Obviously, besides a couple mishaps against North Carolina, he's had a good season. Also, the way college football is going, I would not be shocked if, Hammond plays 4 games, and I've heard the conversation. I wouldn't be shocked if, Rodney Hammond redshirts this year. I would not be shocked. Obviously, he's not getting a lot of playing time as it is right now. Not getting a lot of playing time. Guys are above him. He's playing a little bit here and there sparingly. He just needs more time. He's missed half the year. Daniel Carter's a guy who can jump up and stay in there. Obviously, we didn't see Derek Davis Jr. I don't know if he's injured or not. I'll have to double check on that. Joel Gosh should be back at 100% here pretty soon. He'll be back. So honestly, I think Rodney Hammond may, I would not be shocked if it happened, and it wouldn't be a bad thing overall. But I wouldn't be shocked if he redshirted at some point this year after playing 4 games and decided really after looking at his season, what does it look like? But we'll see about that going on. Pitt only had 5 penalties for 65 yards, and a couple of those calls were questionable at best. That's 100% correct. And again, to your point, even the block below the waist, Rashad Battle was making a tackle, and he was called for a block below the waist. I have no idea what the hell they were talking about there. There was a couple of holding calls that didn't make any sense to me. Also, too, on 4th down, that pass interference call was blatantly BS. I thought that was ridiculous. So in reality, it probably should have maybe 2 or 3 penalties. So overall, it was a clean football game for Pitt, which you love to see. Derek, I drive from this is great, by the way, and I'm glad Derek put this out there because I wanted to talk about it too when I mentioned him as a guy who really just shows up to every game, a tremendous Pitt fan, Derek. I drive from Charlotte, so I don't want to hear people's BS excuses for not coming, hoping I get off work on time to drive in for Syracuse, which is on a Thursday night. A guy like Derek, man, that's a true Pitt fan right there. I met a Pitt fan I can't remember her name. I met her on Saturday. She flew in from Texas to go to this game this past weekend against Cal. Those are next level Pitt fans, and guys like Derek, man, I'm beyond appreciative for what you do in supporting the program. Has a tremendous tailgate, a guy who supported Pitt through thick and thin, through good and bad. I think it's kind of been all of us, especially if you're on this podcast right now and you're listening to this show. You're probably one of those people too. You've seen it, and guess what? And you understand when Pitt's not playing well, it's more important to support the program then because you can go out and get better players. But now they're even playing at a high level. You've got to support the program even more. And subscribing to Alliance 412, just the $19.76 a month makes a difference. If all of our season ticket holders got involved with that, we would raise over $6 million annually just from our fan base, not including the corporate sponsorships, our mega donors, massive influx of money that comes in from one-time donors. We'd be above $10 million, but the buy-in needs to be there. The one thing that was really good, obviously, I talked about on the live stream the night before the game, Alliance 412 and the Panther Club. If you are a Panther Club member, the more you donate to Alliance 412, the more Panther Club points that you get. Oh, my God. That is incredible, and it's about time. Again, I love Heather. If Heather was here, that would not be happening, guys. I got news for you. She had pushed back on that numerous times that I was told, and I was told about that. I knew the announcement was coming 2 days prior before it came out, and it's been a focus on the major changes that are coming to the athletic department and the understanding we're embracing making money. We're embracing revenue. We are embracing NIL and bringing the best talent that we can into the University of Pittsburgh. Guys, if you are a Panther Club member, there is a massive influx of being able to now donate to Alliance 412. I think eventually when we move over to where the schools are now paying players and through revenue sharing, Alliance 412 will not go away. But then at that point, I see it as a charitable donation. At that point, it's going to the school. Obviously, right now, being two separate entities, it's not. Still not a reason not to donate. Me personally, I do the $41. I do the $41.21 a month. Obviously, the 412 level. But it just every dollar counts. Every dollar helps. Signing up to Alliance 412 is massive. It only helps the University of Pittsburgh attract talent, but more importantly, keep the players that are good. It's that simple. They do a great job of keeping players. And Alliance 412, even with the limited support it had, still kept over 26 players, paid to over 26 players massive amounts of money to stay here. Pretty good job by Alliance 412. But I think now more than ever, it's time for this fan base to get involved. Go to football games, support this team, and get on board the Alliance 412. Speaking of Oregon, imagine how electric it would be for the Panther Pit in a 55,000 Pitt stadium with a vertical seating in a closed bowl like Autzen Stadium. Amen. And I can tell you this, when Pitt builds a stadium, it won't be 55,000. It'll be smaller than 50,000 for sure. It'll be electric. Especially, too, for how close it will be. Especially, too, it'll be a bowl. Overall, I think just there's so many more positives to it. It'll be a better environment. When you have a school like Oregon, who's in the, obviously a newer university in terms of success since the middle 2000s and 2010s, if there are 55,000, I think it's a good idea for Pitt to get to that level or below. It's that simple. And I think it'll certainly be below, but overall, it'll create a great atmosphere, a high level of intensity, massive amounts of noise. I mean, even with the crowd that we had there at 47,000 yesterday, that was loud, guys. Even when Cal had 3 straight false start penalties, even the announcers in the booth said this place is rocking right now, and they're definitely getting these people to jump off sides right now. I mean, it was massive, even for the announcers to say that on national television. 93.7 should hire a team of Pitt grads to do Pitt segments, PSU guys do the same, etc. I agree, John. For my Pitt News Media, I listen to the Loyal Sons podcast, and now you. Jason, thank you so much. Loyal Sons do a great job as well. They do a tremendous job. The 3 of them do a great job. They do some really cool stuff overall, especially a lot of stuff they do on Twitter. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for following along to what I talk about and what they talk about. Anytime you can help out Pitt people, it's the best thing you can do. It's awesome to support many platforms. But more importantly, thank you so much, Jason, for being a subscriber to the show. It really means a lot. And again, beyond appreciative. And again, I'm always going to bring you guys the real news, the no bullshit. Whether it's, majority of the time, I'm going to be positive. But guess what? When I need to be negative and get on this team or get on the attendance stuff, I'm going to get on it. So again, I appreciate Jason. I appreciate you, subscribing to the podcast and the YouTube channel and being a supporter. Beyond thankful. You go, JJ, that PM team. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Over on X. Imagine how packed the ACK will be on December 21st for our first round playoff game. I can't wait. Jake, put it into existence, my friend. I cannot tell you how awesome that would be to be at a home playoff game for Pitt. Oh my God, that'd be absolutely incredible. Derek, any word on the extent of the injury to Jacoby and Taylor? You think Jackson Brown gets some playing time? Jackson Brown, I think, is due for some playing time. He's now 100% healthy. He was out for a while with an injury. He's back at 100%. I expect him to get some time. I think Jacoby could probably come back. Not obviously, we have a bye week after the bye week, I think. Branton Taylor, I think, is more of day-to-day. They're going to watch him over a time period. I know the injury is not severe, but I expect him to potentially be back in a couple weeks. Maybe he has to miss one game, but we'll judge that by week, and I get more information, I'll let you know. It makes me cringe every time I see Talkers Pitt or Waffle make a comment. Yeah, Derek, I agree. Yeah, that was some kind of funny stuff in there to mention Talkers Pitt and John Waffle. That was some wild stuff. Derek, what did you say here? It makes me cringe every time I see Talkers Pitt or Waffle make a comment. 937 is the worst. The only time they ever talk about Pitt is when something negative happens. They hire Syracuse, Penn State, and West Virginia guys. It's a joke. Yeah, there's plenty of different times, man, when you read their stuff and you kind of just have to have a conversation to say, hey, why is that even the topic of discussion? Why is it always negative? And that's why, again, I've made those comparisons about why, why are they the ones talking about Pitt football? Why are they the ones, especially too, when the majority of the time it's negative? I just think that overall, when you look at this from a perspective of a Pitt fan, why would Pitt fans want to see that? And I think that's why that the content of Loyal Sons and the content, that we're able to put out here, I hate to say it, is a lot better. And I think Doran Dickerson does a great job on 937 The Fan. I think he does a great job, and it's great to see him on there. Shout out to him as well, a West A grad, obviously a Pitt grad. And also, too, just got a contract extension at 937 The Fan as well. So I'm happy for him because he does a good job, overall. So I'm happy for him, especially, too, in the morning shows that he does. He's a grinder. He's a hell of a worker and a guy that does a great job overall, man. I'm beyond supportive of him. Don't care if you're president. Oh, man, Derek. We're about an hour in, guys. Again, we hit on a number of numerous topics. Obviously, we went into a bunch of stuff here. Obviously, we talked about Eli Holstein, 14-28 for 133 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Obviously, just a bad game. It happens. The defense stepped up. Obviously, we would be talking about something different if Pitt lost, obviously, in that end. Pitt rushed for 144 yards. Some of the defensive stats, we talked about that, obviously. Defensive stats, man, you look at it overall. Kyle Lewis, 12 total tackles, 6 solo tackles, 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss. Brandon George, 11 tackles. Donovan McMillan, 11 tackles. Rashad Battle, 7 tackles, 1 tackle for loss. Let me see here. Braden Lovelace, 7 tackles, 3 sacks. Jimmy Scott, 6 tackles, 3 sacks, 3.5 sacks for tackles for loss, and 3.5 tackles for loss. Phillip O'Brien, 6 tackles. Sean Fitzsimmons, 5 tackles. Javon McIntyre, 4 tackles. Key Thompson, welcome back, 4 tackles, man. Nate Matlack, 2 tackles. Rylan Gandy, 2 tackles. Chris Brookins, 2 tackles. Heck, even Rodney Hammond on special teams had a tackle. Nick James had a tackle, but he was just causing havoc in the backfield all day. So was Sincere Edwards. I'm surprised they didn't get some half a sack or half a tackle. But overall, again, guys, the day just really belonged to the Pitt defense, and shout out to them for just for how good of a job that they did. This is a great question here too, Jason. Can we quickly note the sack that was taken away because of a timeout? I heard no whistles and a QB took an unnecessary shot. Jason, when we were sitting there, I'm glad you mentioned that. Because when I went back and I watched the game, and I went back, under no circumstance did I hear a whistle or anything on the TV, or we were there in person. That was 100% a sack. And again, they converted on that down. Again, and then they converted on that down because it was a pass interference call that was not a pass interference. They really got 2 back-to-back plays that were wrong. I did not hear a whistle. That was a little crazy to me. I didn't understand that as well. There were certainly some plays in there that Cal got a lot of help on, that they're just able to continue their drive. But at the end of the way, Pitt was able to overcome them and find a way to win the football game. That's really the majority of what we're looking at here, man. It just shout out to that defense, man. After that first drive, that first drive was just hideous. Soft, out of place, mental issues, just wrong assignments, just getting blown off the ball. After that, Pitt went back to looking like the real Pitt defense, which is just incredible. So shout out to the Pitt defense, man. The dudes bent over backwards for the PM team. They still act as if Pitt is the crazy little brother. Mueller acts as if he is a Pitt supporter, and he isn't. Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Gary. It's a lot of fake optimism when you look at that station overall. Kept the typo in on purpose. The local PSU and WVU media guys in particular are embarrassing, unprofessional, absolutely hiding their homerism and being objective journalists when their Pitt coverage requires it. Yeah, that'll happen, man. And that's why I think it's just so good to have Doran Dickerson on there. It's good to have, what we're able to do here, our podcast, me being able to have a light to where I'm able to have a conversation with every one of you guys. The Sunday conversation, man. Again, we have now over 121 people in here now between X and YouTube. It shows me both in here. It's a privilege, and it's great to have legitimate, real conversations about Pitt and how well they're doing. But more importantly, the positive aspects of the program. It needs to be talked about more, and that's why we're doing that here. And obviously, too, Loyal Sons does that. Chris Peak does that. Overall, just good Pitt people around everywhere, and that's why it's always good to support all of them. Before looking at the tape, what do you think of Cuse? Adam, I will say this. I think Syracuse is a good football team. They slipped up against Syracuse. That's their only loss. It was at home. They beat a bad NC State team yesterday, but it was at NC State. It's an ACC team. They played well. I actually have some of their stats pulled up here. They won the game 24-17, so it wasn't a barn burner in terms of points. Obviously, NC State's defense has struggled the majority of the year. They're on their third quarterback. Again, I don't think that they're a barn burner by any means. They're not they're not a playoff team or nothing like that as of right now. But guess what? It's Syracuse. They're 5-1, 2-1 in the conference. They're a damn good football team. You have to respect them. Bailey, the quarterback from NC State, he had a really damn good game against Syracuse's defense. He was able to throw for 17 of 24, 329 yards of total passing, 3.7 average, 2 TDs, and 1 interception. Kyle McCord, who's the starting quarterback for Syracuse, was 31 of 42, 346 yards, 8.2 average, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He continues to have a great year. LaQuint Allen rushed 21 times for 91 yards. Dan Valeri, he's still there. If you remember him, Pitt recruited him to be a quarterback. He ended up committing to be a quarterback at Michigan, ended up transferring from there to go to Syracuse. They moved him to tight end. We remember how that game went last year. Dan Valeri rushed 4 times for 11 yards. Yasin Willis, 5 carries for -5 yards. And again, if you don't remember the name Yasin Willis, he was actually a commitment here last year, 4-star running back. Decommitted and went to Syracuse. Obviously, he's from the New Jersey area. Fran Brown is just doing a really good job of recruiting that area overall. Good recruiter. Jackson Meeks for receiving, Syracuse's wide receivers. Jackson Meeks, 11 catches for 116 yards, a 10.5 average, and 1 touchdown catch. Pena had 8 catches for 75 yards. Oronde had 6 catches for 74 yards. LaQuint Allen had 2 catches. Omari Hatcher had 1 catch for 28 yards, and that was a 28-yard touchdown pass. Just good. I think they're a good football team. I'm going to be diving into a lot more of the tape and schematics over this week. I have to have more of a conversation, certainly as we go through and we'll go through more. But to me, guys, I mean, Syracuse is 5-1. You have to respect them. I think they're a good football team from what I'm able to watch. Kyle McCord has thrown for over 300 yards in every one of his games. He's thrown for multiple touchdown passes, 2+ in every one of his games. They're a good football team. That's kind of how I see it. At the end of the day, we're going to this football game. That's why the crowd is going to be such a major factor. I will certainly be there on a Thursday night. My office is in the North Shore. I'll be walking over from my office probably like 5 o'clock to do a little bit of tailgating, meet up with some of the parents and whatnot. Walk across, go to the game, be able to support Pitt. It's going to be a hell of a football game. I can tell you that. Couldn't be more proud of this football team overall. It's going to be a dogfight though. This is going to be a battle. It's Syracuse, man. It just, for some reason, a lot of times these games are tight. And as you can see throughout this season so far, the games have been tight all the way through. Besides maybe the UNC game where we won by 10 points and really had it in hand, this is going to be a different game. And the crowd means even more going forward. And also, too, I give all the credit in the world to the Panther Pit. Obviously it was a holiday. They went home. That's why they weren't there for the majority of the game. I expect full force like they have in previous years, especially in the rain. The Panther Pit in the rain was obviously incredible. A couple of years ago against North Carolina, and the amount of noise they were able to make, I expect the Panther Pit to show up in drones for that game on Thursday night against Syracuse. I expect to see a better showing from the Pitt fan base. And again, I'm going to be all over the Pitt fan base these next 2 weeks. It's time to show up. This is a special season for Pitt. And I'm excited to see the Panther Pit full again with all the students back. Even with the students out, I thought that the attendance by them was great. I mean, heck, the whole bottom section for them was full. I'm extremely excited. I mean, this is going to be, we got a bye week. We have no Pitt football this week, no stress, nothing like that. But after that, you've got time. Thursday is going to be the day, man. It's going to be a hell of a football game from facing the Syracuse Orange at Acrisure Stadium. I believe it's 7:30 is the kickoff, or 7 o'clock. It's one or the other. I'll be able to correct that time when I go through it. It's going to be a hell of a time. And what do we need to do to win? One, control the line of scrimmage. Really, create pockets for Eli Holstein, being able to stretch the football field, what we weren't able to do this week. We need to be able to stretch the football field on them. I'll be able to go through more of a dive into when I watch their games. I've watched a couple of their games. Obviously, being able to establish the run when we need to. Obviously, you can imagine the defensive line for Pitt continue to make pressure and stop the run. They're going to try to run the football. That's number one. And then number two, Kyle McCord, man, quarterback play. He's thrown for over 300 yards. Are we going to be that first defense that stops him from throwing over 300 yards? That's going to be the question going forward. Got to keep McCord in check 100%. Keep heat on him. I agree, Derek. Screw the Qs. We owe them one for last year. Continue the revenge tour. Amen, Tyler. Because Q sees us as their rival. They're dangerous. I'm counting on them bringing their A game 100%. And that's what we're getting ready for now, guys, as we turn the page here at the end of the episode of Talking College Football with JJ Kitchen. Guys, as always and forever, I'm beyond thankful for everything that you do. We had a really high close amount, almost to 1,000 people watching the podcast tonight. The show was great. Please, when this is posted, obviously immediately after this, go into the comment section. Let me know your thoughts overall. What did you like about this past week? What did you not like about the game versus Cal? What are your original thoughts? What are you excited about for the Syracuse game? Your thoughts on the attendance, the team in general. Who stood out on defense? Who stood out on offense? What do you want to see going forward? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Share this video as well, guys. As always and forever, thank you for your support. And as always and forever, hail to Pitt. I'll see you guys next time.